I had a feeling the F-150 Lightning's pricing was just a tad too good to be true. It started when the leaks came forward, followed by the inevitable announcement that it would start at $40,000, and of course that headline, up to 300 miles of range. Now, that range number is with a 1,000-pound payload, so in reality, it should be a tad stronger than that. I don't want people getting their hopes too high, though. That doesn't mean that it can get over 400 miles of range if you take 1,000 pounds out. That would be a concern if that small amount of payload impacted the range that heavily. It's not going to work that way. Maybe with one person and no cargo, you could get maybe like 320 with the extended range option, but Ford actually posted the MSRP listings of the F-150 Lightning today, and the configurator officially went live, so in case you didn't know beforehand, you could reserve an F-150 Lightning, but you couldn't say what kind you want. You couldn't decide if you wanted the Pro, XLT, Lariat, or the Platinum. You couldn't decide the wheels or the colors or any of the countless options Ford offers with their pickup trucks. It was basically just, are you interested in a Lightning of some kind? And you could put down a refundable $100 deposit for that. But now that the configurator is live, we're finding all of the kind of sneaky ways Ford is upcharging people for that high range option. And normally I wouldn't be so picky about extended range options, but the thing is, Ford is still only promising 230 miles of range on the base model for $40,000. Now, I get it, it's an electric truck, and because of the way it's designed, and because the F-150 is not inherently very aerodynamic, and between all of the different options they offer for the bed and the configurator, none of them seem to offer a simple tonneau cover, so that's not going to help with aerodynamics as well. But 230 miles compared to everything else on the market does seem quite a bit low. You know, going up against the Rivian, which has over 300 miles of range, granted, is a lot more expensive, but I think especially when you start planning road trips of any kind, the difference between 250 miles of range and 300 miles of range is not as different as 250 and 200 miles of range, because once you start dipping below that 250, 240 mark, if you don't have an adequate charger network to support you, then you're gonna be cutting it close between a lot of different charge points, and the amount of time it takes for you to get to different destinations gets astronomically higher the more you dip below that 250 mile range option. So obviously I'm hoping that the Lightning can actually exceed 230 miles without a payload, but I have to imagine on road trips it's going to be more common for people to pack stuff and take it with them. And certainly the F-150 Pro will serve a decent market of people that are looking for an electric pickup truck that they just use as a weekend warrior, right? I got no problem with that. I know a lot of weekend warriors myself that just drive their pickup truck around town, gotta pick up some furniture, gotta drop off some equipment, or gotta pick up some gravel or some dirt and just drive it to the other side of town and then drive it back home. So for the people just driving their truck within their city, 230 miles is fine, no question. Like, of course, I'm not saying the F-150 is in trouble, it's just my expectations, I think, were maybe a tad high when I was expecting the 300 mile range option to be not much more than 40,000, right? Because you'd have to think 230 miles of range for 40,000? Okay, that means, sure, you gotta spend a little more, but you can get 300 miles of range, right? In the XLT or the Lariat and the Platinum. But because of how Ford has built this configuration, they've kind of hidden a necessary upcharge. So just as a reminder, the F-150 Pro, they will not let anybody order an extended range battery with that model, which would be perfect because extended range battery is supposed to cost $10,000 more. So naturally, you would then have a $50,000 F-150 that's electric and goes 300 miles per charge. That would be great, but as I talked about in my previous F-150 Lightning video, they decided against that because likely the batteries the F-150 is using are huge, and this is not a very efficient powertrain. If it's anything like the Mustang Mach-E, this thing sucks a lot of power, and they only let you opt for the extended range option if you go with the F-150 Lightning XLT, which starts at $53,000, and it gives you a few extra things with the interior, a bit more functional changes with lighting and plugs and all these little details that stack up. But now that the configurator is live, we've discovered that once you select the $53,000 XLT, and then you select, yes, I would like the extended range option, they also require you to get this additional equipment package, which is an additional $10,000 on top of the extended range $10,000. So yes, this means if you're a big Ford fan out there and you just wanted an F-150 Lightning that could go over 300 miles on a charge, makes sense, especially if people, you know, want to tow stuff with this thing. That range is going to get cut in half, and of course on road trips, I think the difference between 230 and 300 is likely a bit more noticeable, especially since they're going to be relying on the Electrify America network. If this was a Tesla, maybe maybe you could get by with 230 a bit easier because of how many superchargers there are, but it's not. You're still falling back on a third-party charge network that's proven to be less reliable and have less stalls. The base price, with no other options other than the extended range pack, is over $74,000. So now reality is setting in a bit for me. You know, I knew the Cybertruck was going to be more expensive than we thought, but for a while there, it felt kind of crazy that Rivian was selling this 300-mile range electric pickup truck for $73,000. That sounds crazy, especially with the F-150 Lightning around the corner, but now it's all starting to make a tad more sense to me. In order for Ford to profitably sell a 300-mile range truck, they have to charge well over $70,000 because guess what? Unlike Rivian and unlike Tesla, which I'm sure many of you are commenting, well, other cars are this expensive too, and Tesla's rose their price a lot, and the Cybertruck's gonna cost more than Elon said too, but you know what? At least there's no dealer markups to worry about with the Cybertruck or the Rivian. You order the truck, they deliver the truck, and you pay the price that was on the website. With the Ford dealers, we're already seeing emails go out of certain dealers charging a $5,000 markup or $10,000 markups just so that you can get the F-150 Lightning early. So my point is, if 300 miles is your minimum and that's what you want out of your F-150 Lightning, you'll be lucky to get out of the dealership with $74,000. More than likely, they will attach a $2,000 to $5,000 markup, and maybe if you're unlucky, $10,000, and you'll easily end up paying $80,000 for this truck, and before you know it, it's actually cheaper to get a Rivian. Okay, like the bed isn't as big, and it might not have as big a frunk as the F-150 Lightning does, but I do think range matters a lot for people who are doing a lot of towing, and of course, taking this truck on longer trips. So again, I want to emphasize, I'm not saying the F-150 Lightning is in danger. They clearly have an insane amount of demand for it. And I'm very happy to see Ford is actually doubling their last production capacity goals, so I don't know how exactly they're doubling it when they don't have the batteries to supply it yet, but in their more recent announcements, they've since said they're planning on building over 150,000 F-150 Lightnings per year. But of course, with the chip shortage and how many batteries they have, I don't know how long it's going to take them to actually reach that run rate, but sure, there's a lot of demand for the F-150. It's the best-selling vehicle in the United States. They sell like 1 million of them a year, so of course, I think there's enough people to warrant around 150,000 a year for the electric option, and even if they don't take them on road trips, you know, my brother-in-law drives his F-150 basically to work and back and to help work on projects around the house and for friends and neighbors. He does not take that truck on road trips, so a 230-mile range might seem a little bit intimidating to a lot of gas guzzlers out there that are like, that seems a lot lower than what I'm used to, but for people who are willing to make the transition to electric, it probably makes sense, and I'm hoping that the dealer markups won't be too bad on the F-150 Pro. It would certainly be a huge disappointment if someone reserved one of these trucks expecting to pay around $40,000, and then as soon as they find one from the dealer, they're like, actually, it's $50,000 because I want to get paid. Paying that kind of money with a range that low is a compromise that I think might divide a bit more people. End of the day, though, I'm a big fan of having like a solid charging network with lower range as long as it helps with affordability. I still think there will be hundreds of thousands of people every single year willing to buy electric vehicles that don't go over 300 miles on a charge, and I think the F-150 Lightning will be perfect for that market, perfect for people who are comfortable with sub 300 mile range performance, because that's what you're gonna get out of the standard range battery. But it is impressive that the frunk is as large as a lot of sedans' trunks, plus you've got the full-size bed, not to mention all-wheel drive with the dual motor powertrain. It's just the Lightning market, I think, is much more different than I was originally anticipating. At this point, with how different the prices are, I would hardly say the F-150 Lightning is really even competing with the Rivian. Like, they're going after completely different markets at this point, and the F-150 Lightning is not really undercutting the Rivian in the market that Rivian is catering towards, at least, because, okay, you can save your money and buy a $50,000 Lightning instead of a $70,000 Rivian, but you're probably going to get far less range out of that truck. So where the Cybertruck sits in all of this is going to be incredibly interesting to me, because I think Rivian has kind of prioritized the good enough amount of range of like over 300, which is what most people are comfortable with. F-150 Lightning, I now feel like the majority of the reservation holders are likely going to prioritize the standard range battery, which is going to be a different demographic of pickup owner. And Cybertruck might be the first electric truck to market to prioritize the towing demographic, which sounds ridiculous until you realize that Tesla is the only one claiming up to 500 miles of range with their truck. Ford is not even even trying to attempt 400 miles, and Rivian has delayed their 400-mile range until 2023. So it's going to be very interesting to see how all of these electric pickup trucks coexist with each other, but I am, of course, curious to hear what you guys think of all of these different tiers and how complicated the configurator is for the Lightning. Do you think that the prices are still fair, even at $74,000 before the dealer markup, or do you think Ford has botched it on this one and should try to find ways of extending range and making it more profitable? All that good stuff. Feel free to let me know what you're thinking down in the comments below. Thank you to everyone supporting me over on Patreon, helping me afford Tesla for later this year, and to everyone watching, that makes a difference as well. So take care. Have a great day.